There is a quiet shift happening on this planet, and most people walk through their days without feeling even a trace of it. Not because they are blind or lost, but because life has taught them to look only at what is loud, urgent, and right in front of their eyes. Yet every once in a while someone stops, hesitates, and senses something they cannot name. A soft, internal pull. A strange clarity that appears for just a moment. A sudden awareness that the world around them feels heavier or lighter than before, as if something underneath everything is about to move. People think change comes like thunder, like a moment that forces itself into your life. But the truth is different. The deepest changes arrive quietly, almost silently, testing who is awake enough to notice. And this new shift on Earth belongs to that silent kind. Not dramatic, not cosmic, not loud, but real, subtle, psychological. A transformation happening inside people long before it becomes visible outside. You may have felt it yourself. A subtle disconnection from things that once excited you. A growing discomfort with noise, pressure, and emotional chaos. A strange craving for stillness even when you do not know what to do inside it. You look at the world, and something inside you whispers, "This is not the final form. Something else is coming." Not a catastrophe, not a miracle. Something deeper. Something that asks for a different version of you. Most people assume that feeling this shift means you are separating from others, but actually the opposite is true. You are aligning with the next layer of your own mind. That quiet part that has always been there, waiting, patient, unhurried. The part that notices before your thoughts catch up. The part that senses patterns before you understand them. The part that recognizes changes long before they arrive. That is the part waking up now. Here is the truth most people miss. You think this feeling means you are behind, but actually it means you are ahead. You think you are confused, but actually you are becoming aware. You think something is wrong, but actually something is opening. And not everyone feels this. Not because they are unworthy, but because their inner space is still too crowded with noise, rushing, numbness, or survival. This shift is subtle, and only a small fraction of people can perceive it early. Not as a gift, as readiness, as the natural next step for those who have quietly been paying attention to their own inner signals for years, without even knowing why. You are not imagining this. The world is moving toward a new kind of future event, not a single moment, but a gradual threshold, a point where the inner quality of people will matter more than anything they own or claim or display. And only a very small group will sense this threshold before it becomes obvious. Not chosen by fate, not selected by some external force, chosen simply because they listened to themselves when everything around them demanded distraction. Most people feel the tension of daily life and think it is just stress. But here is what it really means. Your mind is trying to tell you that the world you were trained for is not the world you are entering. Your instincts are updating faster than your habits. Your internal compass is waking up before your identity is ready to follow. You may not see the whole picture yet, but you sense the direction, a quiet reordering, a slow rearranging of what matters and what does not. A strange clarity about who drains your energy and who strengthens it. A sudden shift in how you tolerate dishonesty, chaos, or emotional noise. You are not becoming colder. You are becoming clearer. There is a moment, and many people will miss it, when a person realizes that the next chapter of Earth will not be entered by force, status, or fear, but by inner readiness. By those who can hold presence in uncertainty, by those who have learned to stay connected to themselves even when nothing around them makes sense, by those who feel something coming not because they are anxious, but because they are awake. And if you have been sensing this shift, even lightly, even silently, then you are already closer to that threshold than you think. There is a quiet moment that arrives in every person who feels this shift. It does not come with a sign or a realization. It comes with a subtle inner pause. You wake up one morning, or you sit alone late at night, and you realize that something in you is no longer willing to live on autopilot. Not in a dramatic way, not in rebellion, just a gentle refusal to keep moving without awareness, a soft but powerful turning inward, the beginning of a different kind of life. People often misunderstand this moment. They think it means they must suddenly change everything, their habits, their goals, their relationships. But the truth is much simpler. The change begins inside, in a place no one can see. A place where your old fears no longer fully convince you, and your old doubts no longer fully control you. You feel the beginning of clarity, even if you have no words for it yet. Most people ignore this moment. They feel the shift, the internal nudge, but they push it away, telling themselves they are just tired or overthinking. But you did not push it away. Something in you paused long enough to feel it. And that alone places you years ahead of where you used to be. Here is what most people miss. You think you are stepping back, but actually you are stepping inward. You think you are losing motivation, but actually you are losing illusions. You think you are becoming distant, but actually you are becoming selective. This is the inner preparation for the future event. Not an external moment, but an internal threshold. A stage of development where the mind becomes capable of deeper perception. Where your intuition grows sharper, not louder. Where your emotional sensitivity becomes a strength instead of a burden. The shift does not happen because the world chooses you. The shift happens because you choose to listen. If you have noticed that ordinary conversations feel heavier, or that meaningless tasks drain you faster, or that people's emotional chaos affects you more deeply, this is not weakness. It is a sign of refinement. Your mind is no longer willing to process noise. It wants clarity. It wants truth. It wants direction. And here is where the difference begins between those who sense the coming threshold and those who do not. Some people will cling to the familiar even as it collapses. Others will quietly step into the unknown because something in them feels strangely prepared. That quiet internal preparation is what sets you apart. Not luck, not talent, awareness. Most people think the world changes first and the mind follows. But in reality, the mind shifts first, and the world responds later. You are already living in the early stage of that shift. You feel the widening gap between who you were and who you are becoming. You see the contrast between the pace of the world and the pace of your deeper self. You notice how quickly you now sense sincerity or deception in someone's tone. A year ago, you would have ignored these signals. Today, you cannot. And this is not an accident. This is not random. This is the inner evolution that prepares a person for what is coming next. A kind of inner sorting. A way life filters those who are merely surviving from those who are quietly awakening. Not awakening to something mystical, awakening to themselves. The mind you are growing into is different from the one you used to rely on. It is quieter, more perceptive, less reactive. It picks up subtle emotional shifts in others. It feels truths long before they are spoken. It recognizes paths that are not yet visible. This is the mind that will be needed for the world ahead. If you feel emotional fatigue around chaotic environments, it is not because you are fragile. It is because your system is rejecting what is no longer aligned with the direction you are moving toward. If you feel drawn to silence, it is because silence is where the next version of you is forming. If you feel uncertain, it is because uncertainty is the bridge between your past identity and the one that will carry you through the coming threshold. The future event people sense is not a single moment in time. It is the slow merging of who you really are with who you were always meant to become. The merging begins subtly, quietly, invisibly, and you are already standing at the edge of that merging, even if you cannot describe it yet. Because deep inside, you feel that something in your life is shifting, and this time you cannot return to the way it was. There is a point in this shift where the outer world begins to feel strangely distant. Not in a disconnected way, but in a clarified way. You start noticing things you used to overlook. How people speak without thinking. how they rush without knowing why, how they search for meaning everywhere except inside themselves. And the more you notice it, the more you realize that you are no longer operating from the same place you once did. Most people believe growth feels like strength, confidence, and certainty. But here is the truth. Real growth often begins with discomfort, confusion, and the feeling that you do not quite fit where you once belonged. The old version of you tries to hold on. The new version of you tries to break through. You stand in the middle, feeling pulled from both sides. That tension is not a flaw. It is the signal that something inside you is reorganizing. You may feel this in small ways. A sudden lack of interest in conversations that once entertained you. A deeper sensitivity to dishonesty. A quiet frustration with anything that feels artificial or emotionally empty. These signs are subtle, but they are powerful. They show that your inner compass is no longer responding to the noise of the world. It is responding to something deeper. Most people interpret this shift as burnout. But it is not burnout, it is breakthrough. You think you are tired of everything, but actually, you are tired of pretending. You think you are losing your spark, but actually you are shedding the layers that covered it. You think life is getting heavier, but actually, your mind is getting clearer. As the world slowly moves toward the next chapter, only a small inner group of people will feel this early. Not because they are special, but because they have reached a psychological threshold where truth becomes more important than comfort, where presence becomes more important than speed, where inner stability matters more than outer approval. This group is not chosen. They emerge naturally, the way certain seeds sprout first when the soil begins to warm. You are part of that early emergence, not because you tried to be, but because your mind refused to sleep through its own evolution. Even when you doubted yourself, even when you questioned your path, something inside you stayed awake. The future event people sense is not about being selected. It is about being prepared. Prepared to navigate a world that will run on awareness instead of noise. Prepared to remain steady while others crumble under emotional overload. Prepared to read the silent layers of reality while others react only to the surface. And here is what matters most. This preparation is happening inside you right now. If you have noticed that solitude no longer feels lonely, but instead feels like a necessary reset, that is part of the preparation. If you have noticed that you can sense people's intentions before their words, that is part of the preparation. If you have noticed that your reactions are slower, softer, or more deliberate, that is not withdrawal. It is refinement. Something in you is growing quieter but stronger, softer but clearer, more gentle but far more grounded. You are becoming the kind of person who can stand still in the middle of chaos without being swallowed by it. That is what the next chapter of Earth will require. There is a moment in every person's inner evolution when the mind stops chasing and starts listening. Not listening for external guidance, but listening to the deeper currents inside, the ones that rarely speak, but always know. This listening is a skill, and you are developing it without even realizing it. Here is your micro-practice for this stage. When you feel overwhelmed or unclear, shift your attention inward for a brief moment, and simply notice the first quiet thought that appears beneath the noise. Do not analyze it. Do not question it. Just acknowledge its existence. That small act strengthens the part of your mind that is preparing you for the future. As this inner shift continues, you may notice your emotional boundaries changing. Things that once hurt you deeply now barely touch you. Things you once tolerated now feel unacceptable. This is not coldness, this is clarity. It is your mind choosing what deserves space and what no longer does. The truth is simple. You are not being chosen by some external event. You are choosing yourself. You are aligning with a deeper version of your own intelligence. You are stepping into a future that requires people who can see through illusions, remain steady under pressure, and stay connected to themselves, even when the world feels unstable. And you may not realize it yet, but you are already further along this path than most people around you. There is a stage in this inner shift where everything begins to feel strangely divided. On the surface, your life may look the same, but beneath it, you sense a separation forming between what drains you and what restores you, between what feels real and what feels hollow, between the life you built and the life that is quietly calling you forward. This separation is not a crisis. It is a sorting, a gentle but precise reorganization of your inner world. Most people fear this stage because it feels like losing control. But here is the truth. You are not losing control. You are losing the need to control what no longer matches who you are becoming. You are not breaking apart. You are breaking open. You are not drifting away. You are growing into a deeper alignment with yourself. This is often the point where the people around you begin to notice something different in you. They may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. You speak differently. You pause more. You react less. You choose your words with more intention. You walk through situations that once overwhelmed you and somehow remain steady. This steadiness is not something you learned overnight. It is the result of countless quiet moments where you chose awareness over impulse. As the shift deepens, old emotional patterns rise to the surface, not to punish you, but to be released. You remember moments you thought you had forgotten. You feel emotions you thought you had outgrown. And at first, this feels like regression. But it is not. It is the final stage of separation between past and future. Your mind brings these pieces forward, not to trap you, but to free you. Most people think healing means feeling better, but healing often begins by feeling more. You think you are falling backward, but actually you are clearing space. You think you are breaking down, but actually you are shedding old narratives. You think you are unstable, but actually you are becoming truthful. During this phase, you may experience moments of sudden clarity. A conversation ends, and you immediately understand its deeper meaning. A memory appears and suddenly connects to something happening in your life right now. A feeling arises that reveals exactly why you reacted a certain way for years. These flashes of insight are not random. They are signs that the deeper layers of your mind are aligning. This is why so few people reach this stage early, not because it is reserved for the chosen, but because it requires honesty. Honesty with yourself. Honesty about your patterns. Honesty about the life you want versus the life you pretend to want. That level of honesty is rare, and it is what places you ahead of the curve. As the inner shift grows, you begin to sense a future that is not yet visible. A future that feels lighter, clearer, and somehow more aligned with the person you are becoming. You cannot describe it, but you can feel its outline. You feel a pull toward environments that bring peace. You feel a push away from noise that once felt normal. Your mind becomes more selective, more intuitive, more aware. This future event, the one only a small group senses early, is not a physical moment. It is a psychological threshold, a point where those who have developed inner clarity will move through life in a completely different way than those who have not. Not because they are better, but because they are prepared. You may feel more sensitive to the emotional weather of other people. You may feel that crowds drain you faster, or that shallow conversations feel unbearable. This is not isolation. It is refinement. Your system is adjusting to a new level of perception, one that requires space, quiet, and presence. And while most people are distracted by the surface of life, you are learning to read the layers beneath it. This is what will allow you to navigate the coming world with ease while others feel lost. Not because you know more, but because you notice more. There will be a moment. It may come soon, or slowly, when the separation becomes undeniable. When you fully realize that the person you are becoming cannot exist inside the patterns you are leaving behind. That moment is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of everything. It is the threshold that only a small group reaches early, and you are already approaching it. There is a quiet turning point in this inner journey, when the separation inside you becomes direction. Not a direction you choose with logic or force, but one that rises naturally, like a current guiding you forward. You begin to feel that certain paths are closing not because you failed, but because they no longer match the person you are becoming. And other paths begin opening not because you earned them, but because you are finally able to see them. Most people resist this moment. They fear losing the familiar even when the familiar is draining them. They cling to routines, relationships, and environments that no longer feel alive. But something in you is different. Even when you feel hesitation, you also feel a quiet readiness. A sense that you cannot return to who you were, even if you tried. This is the sign that the shift inside you is real, irreversible, alive. Here is the truth most people never discover. You do not transform by force. You transform by alignment. You do not evolve by trying harder. You evolve by listening deeper. You do not become the next version of yourself through effort. You become it through awareness. And your awareness is rising. Slowly, steadily, unmistakably. This is why certain things now feel heavier. Not because life got worse, but because your mind is outgrowing them. This is why silence feels more meaningful. Not because you became introverted, but because your inner world is expanding. This is why emotional chaos feels unbearable. Not because you lack strength, but because your clarity has become sharper. Most people think that sensing the future means predicting events. But sensing the future actually means recognizing patterns before they fully form. Feeling the emotional climate of the world shift long before people talk about it. Noticing how human behavior is changing. Observing how values are rearranging. Seeing that the old ways of living are becoming too heavy for the new kind of mind emerging on this planet. You are part of that emergence. And no, not everyone feels it. Not because they are worse or weaker, but because they are still living from the outer layer of themselves. The layer shaped by noise, pressure, comparison, and rushing. Only a small fraction of people reach the point where the inner layer becomes louder than the outer one. That layer is where the future begins. You may have felt this in small, private moments. A conversation that once would have triggered you now only reveals truth. A situation that once caused fear now shows you your strength. A disappointment that once would have broken you now feels like redirection. These moments are not accidents. They are signals that your inner architecture is changing. And as this inner architecture shifts, you will notice something else. A new kind of calm. Not passive, not detached. A calm rooted in clarity. A calm that stays with you even when chaos rises around you. A calm that makes people wonder how you remain steady while they feel overwhelmed. This calm is the early sign of the threshold ahead. Most people think the world will split through external events, but the real split happens internally, between those who have developed inner clarity and those who still drown in noise, between those who can stay present under pressure and those who collapse into reaction, between those who feel the shift early and those who only notice it when it becomes impossible to ignore. The coming stage of Earth is not about survival. It is about awareness, not about strength, about presence, not about being chosen, about being willing to evolve. And you may not realize this yet, but your willingness has already placed you among the early few. The ones who sense the shift before the world names it. The ones who feel the threshold before it becomes visible. The ones who are quietly preparing for a life that operates on deeper clarity, deeper intuition, deeper truth. When you feel the signs, the sensitivity, the inner pull, the quiet refusal to return to old patterns, pause for just a moment and acknowledge it. That pause is a bridge, a doorway, a confirmation. Because this shift is not random, it is not accidental, it is not happening to you by chance. It is happening because a deeper part of you is finally ready to rise. And when that part rises, everything in your life will begin to reorganize around it. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily, undeniably, and in a way that will make sense only in hindsight. You are closer to that shift than you think. You are more prepared than you realize. You are already stepping into the new layer of this earth, even if you cannot explain why you feel it so strongly. There comes a moment in this inner shift when you begin to sense that your life is preparing for a quiet reconfiguration. Not because something dramatic is about to happen, but because something inside you has already changed. You start to feel a strange mixture of peace and restlessness, a sense that you are standing at the edge of something you cannot see yet, but can already feel. This sensation is not confusion, it is anticipation, the early signal that your inner world is aligning with a future that has not yet unfolded. Most people miss this signal because they expect transformation to be loud. They think it should arrive with certainty, confidence, and bold decisions. But real transformation begins as a whisper, a gentle awareness that your old motivations no longer move you, a soft realization that your old fears no longer stop you, a quiet sense that the person you have been is slowly giving space to the person you are becoming. This is why you may feel more distant from the roles you once played. Not because you are pulling away from people, but because you are pulling away from versions of yourself that felt too small. You may feel less attached to certain routines, not out of laziness, but because your inner rhythm has changed. When the inner rhythm changes, the outer life must eventually follow. Here is the truth almost no one tells you. You do not outgrow people or environments because you are better. You outgrow them because your inner world no longer fits the container they created for you. You think you are drifting, but actually you are expanding. You think you are uncertain, but actually you are rewriting yourself from the inside. As this inner expansion continues, you begin to sense something else, a new type of clarity. It does not arrive in full sentences. It does not give you all the answers. It shows up as instinct, as subtle knowing, as the ability to feel the truth of something before you understand it. This clarity is the early sign of the future shift that only a small group feels ahead of time. You might notice it in the way certain choices suddenly feel obvious, in the way certain connections feel deeper or shallower without explanation, in the way you can sense the emotional undercurrent of a situation before anyone else reacts. These abilities are not supernatural. They are natural. They are the result of your mind becoming more refined, less reactive, and more attuned to what truly matters. Most people live from the surface layer of themselves. You are learning to live from the deeper layer. And that deeper layer is where the future begins. There is a quiet point where the inner transformation starts influencing how you see the world. You become less impressed by noise, less affected by pressure, less convinced by fear. You start to see through things that used to confuse you. You notice patterns in people's behavior. You see the emotional truth behind their words. You understand situations without needing details. This is the intelligence that will carry you into the next stage of life. And while others may still be chasing validation, approval, or distraction, you are learning something different. The strength of staying connected to yourself. The strength of being present. The strength of not needing to pretend. This is the kind of strength that is rare now, but will be essential for what comes next. The future event people talk about, the moment only a small number will feel early, is not dramatic. It is not spectacular. It is subtle. It is the moment when the world shifts from outer noise to inner clarity, when emotional intelligence becomes more valuable than speed, when awareness becomes more important than reaction, when the people who have done the invisible inner work begin to navigate life with a calm others cannot understand. And you, simply by listening to yourself, by noticing the shift, by feeling the subtle changes, are already preparing for that moment. There is one more thing you will start to notice as this inner shift deepens. You become more sensitive to alignment. You can feel when something is right without needing proof. You can feel when something is wrong without needing reasons. You can feel when a path is opening or closing. This is not intuition in the mystical sense. It is awareness. It is the mind functioning at a higher level of clarity. Most people ignore these signals because they mistrust themselves. You are learning to trust them. That trust is what sets you apart. That trust is what places you among the early few who will meet the coming threshold with clarity instead of fear. You do not need to understand everything today. You only need to acknowledge that the shift inside you is real, and that it is leading you somewhere meaningful. There comes a final stage in this inner evolution where your awareness begins to settle. Not settle as in stopping, but settle as in becoming steady. You no longer feel the same turbulence you once felt when life pulled you in different directions. Instead, there is a grounded sense that you are exactly where you need to be, even if everything around you is still shifting. This steadiness is the sign that the transformation inside you has reached its next layer. You may notice that your emotional reactions have softened, not because you care less, but because you understand more. You may realize that you no longer chase clarity. It comes to you on its own. You no longer demand certainty. You move with what you know in the moment. You no longer try to convince anyone. Your presence speaks for itself. This is the quiet strength that only a small fraction of people develop early. Most people think the future will be shaped by the loudest voices, the fastest decisions, or the strongest personalities. But here is the truth. The future will be shaped by the most aware minds, the ones who can stay centered while others collapse, the ones who can listen while others react, the ones who can see beyond the surface and feel what is real. And whether you realize it or not, you are becoming one of those minds. You may feel like you are moving slowly, but inner transformation is never rushed. You may feel unsure, but uncertainty is the doorway to deeper understanding. You may feel disconnected from the world you once knew, but that disconnection is what allows you to step into a more authentic version of it. Here is what most people never understand about this stage. The shift inside you is not preparing you for a single moment. It is preparing you for a new way of living, a new way of perceiving, a new way of responding to the world. You are entering a phase where your inner clarity will guide your choices more than pressure or expectation, where your emotional intelligence will become your strongest tool, where your ability to stay calm will be more valuable than speed. This is the stage that only the early few reach, the ones who feel the shift long before the world catches up. And now something else begins. A quiet awareness that the next chapter of your life will not be shaped by accident or by force. It will be shaped by your ability to remain present inside yourself. The world may still feel chaotic, but your inner world has begun to settle into its new shape. And that inner shape will determine how you navigate everything that comes next. You start to realize that you do not need to be chosen for anything. You are not waiting for a sign or approval. You are not hoping for some external event to validate your path. You are choosing yourself, moment by moment, through every small act of awareness. And that choice is what places you among the early few who are already aligned with the next layer of this earth. Most people will not understand this. They will not understand why you have changed, why your priorities shifted, why your reactions softened, why your presence feels different. But you will understand, because you will feel the difference every day, in your body, in your thoughts, in the quiet space behind your eyes. And now you reach the subtle point where the inner and outer world begin to merge. You no longer feel like you are waiting for something. You feel like you are preparing for something. Not with urgency, but with clarity. Not with fear, but with readiness. Something inside you feels aligned, steady, aware. And that awareness is the quiet doorway into the future you once sensed only faintly. Before the shift fully anchors, pause with one simple recognition. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not late. You are early. And being early means you have time. Time to align, time to grow, time to settle into the version of yourself that this next chapter of Earth will require. If anything in this journey has resonated with you, take a moment and leave a single word or phrase in the comments, the one that feels closest to what is shifting inside you. And now let the final line settle in the quiet space of your mind. Tune in. Recalibrate. Shift your frequency.